Now, dear students, today I will be discussing with you the Disaster Management Act of 2005. It is Disaster Management Act of 2005. The Disaster Management Act of 2005, it is also, you will see in few of the books, it is also shown as DMA 2005. It's an act which has been passed by the government of India for efficient management of disasters and other related matters, other matters which are related with the disaster. Okay. Now, unless or until we do not have a proper act to rectify or to manage some disasters, so it can be called this disaster management act. It can be called as a tool which can be used in the crisis when there are disasters. If you go through the contents of this Disaster Management Act of 2005, it contains 11 chapters, and in 11 chapters there are 79 sections. Okay. Now, since we are not going to discuss every chapter or every section of this act, I will be discussing with you the main features, the main features of the Disaster Management Act of 2015. Okay. Now, first, governing bodies which have been established by this Management Act of 2005, they are National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA. The National Disaster Management Authority is headed by the Prime Minister of India. He is the chairperson. The Prime Minister is the chairperson of this National Disaster Management Authority in the short form, which is known as NDMA, and will have no more than 9 members, including a vice chairman. Now, all the members will have a tenure of 5 years. The main responsibility of this NDMA or National Disaster Management Authority is to lay down the policies. What they do, they lay down the policies, they lay down the plans and the guidelines for disaster management to ensure an effective response in the event of any disaster. Okay. Number 2 is the National Executive Committee. The Disaster Management Act of 2005, it empowers the central government to create a National Executive Committee, which in the short form is known as NEC. It basically, this NEC, it assists, it helps the National Disaster Management Authority. The NEC consists of the secretary level officers of the government in the Home Department, Health Department, Power Department, Finance Department, and Agriculture Ministries. Disasters, I have already discussed with you the kinds of natural disasters, and the man-made disaster in the class. So you should not face any difficulty when we talk of the secretary level officers of the government in the Home Department, Health Department, Power Department, Finance Department, Agriculture, these ministers, because there can be, please don't get confused, there can be some disasters which are related with the agriculture or which are related with the drought if it happens in the country. Therefore, now, now this has been done to take the support of almost of all the ministries, all the main ministries. For example, health ministry. If we talk of this COVID-19, by virtue of this Disaster Management Act of 2005, the lockdown period, which was declared throughout the India during this pandemic, it was done only with the powers of this Disaster Management Act of the 2005. Okay, and this National Executive Committee, it is responsible for the preparation of National Disaster Management Plan for the whole country, for the entire country, and to ensure that it is reviewed and updated annually. On yearly basis, reports, everything is being done, everything is being reviewed so that the this Disaster Management Act of 2005 can be made useful as far as these disasters are concerned. Number third is the State Disaster Management Authority. It is known as SDMA. This SDMA, or State Disaster Management Authority, is responsible for drawing the disaster plan. Basically, every state has its State Disaster Management Authority. What it does, basically, what is the role of the State Disaster Management Authority? It is responsible for drawing the disaster plan for the respective state. Now, it consists of Chief Minister, who is the chairperson, and there are 8 members appointed by the Chief Minister. One chairperson is the Chief Minister, CM is the chairperson, and there are 8 persons, we can call them as members, which have been appointed by the Chief Minister. Now, this, as far as this State Disaster Management Authority, SDME, is mandated under, there is a section 28 of the Act, section 28 of this Act. SDME is mandated under this section to ensure that all the departments of the state prepare state disaster management plans as prescribed by the national and state authorities. Okay. Now, coming to point number 4, it is district disaster Management Authority. We call it as a DDMA. Now, District Disaster Management Authority, the chairperson of this District Disaster Management Authority will be the collector or the district magistrate, which we call that the DM, or deputy commissioner, or we call it DC, deputy commissioner or deputy commissioner. Okay. Now, number fifth is the National Disaster Response Force. We call this the NDRF. We call it NDRF. Now, this National Disaster Response Force is tasked with responding to a threatened disaster or a situation that is similar to it. The National Disaster Response Force is led by a Director General appointed by the central government. The NDRF, which is in the short form it is NDRF, has played a major role in rescuing people from many disaster related events in the past. For example, if we talk of the floods of 2014, which happened in Kashmir, those are known as Kashmir floods of 2014. This National Disaster Response Force, it has played a very critical role while rescuing from people from various flood prone areas. Similarly, if we remember the Kerala flood of 2018, the same NDRF over there has also done a commendable job as far as the rescuing of people are now concerned. Okay, now you can see all these basically this act, DMA Act or Disaster Management Act, it contains 11 chapters and 79 sections, which I have already told you, which I have mentioned in this lecture. Now, this NDMA, NEC, SDMA, DDMA, NDRF, these all these came into action by this act, by the act of this 2005. Okay. Now, as far as the progress and we can say the achievement which has been made by this Disaster Management Act of 2005, 2005. Now, basically, the basic principle on which the Management Act is based upon, it has a belief that mitigation of disaster related losses is efficient, that expenditure on relief and rehabilitation. Okay. Now, basically, this under this DMA Act of 2005, it basically draws various kinds of plans, strategies, partnerships, course of actions for what? So that this disaster can be countered. We can have some counteractions. By counteractions, we can reduce the effects or aftermath of various kinds of these disasters. And without any doubt, there is some sort of criticism among the people when we talk of this disaster management of 2000, the Act of 2005. This DMA Act of 2005 has been able to fill certain crucial gaps when we talk of the management as far as our country is concerned. But definitely there are certain drawbacks, uh, when the particular kind of a disaster comes with respect to certain uh, zones or certain areas. Now, there are certain new disaster management guidelines underway, and one can only hope if it incorporates several provisions to overcome dysfunctions of the wherever there happen some dysfunctions of the authorities, and they in a gradual period of time those can 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 uh, be so that it does not happen again and again, and with the result the the role DMA plays can be valuable as far as the saving people or the property of the people is concerned. Stop share and